The ROV began the dive above the base of a deep-sea coral mound located beneath the Gulf Stream. This dive explores 3 mounds in the same area of the Stetson Mesa. The substrate appeared bare with minimal sightings of living biota. A juvenile chimera is observed at the beginning of the dive. Chimeras use their large, wing-like pectoral fins to propel themselves through the water. A small patch of living Lophelia pertusa occupies a small space amidst dead coral rubble. The coral rubble on this mound is most likely dead Lophelia pertusa. A soft pink octocoral fits snugly next to a large white demosponge. The pinnate tentacles are used to capture food and defend itself from predators. A tiny sea spider clings onto a glass sponge as the Gulf Stream's strong current flows north. Brown bands on Unicella bamboo coral stalks represent growth and maturity. Dark bands indicate slow growth, while light-colored bands indicate fast growth. A cup coral lingers behind a bamboo coral. Its polyps are retracted in response to the Gulf Stream's current and other potential environmental threats. 2 cutthroat eels swim along a slope of the mound. They are one of the most abundant fish observed in this dive. About 1 hour into the dive, the first stony coral was found. When this coral is healthy, it is white. When polyps can no longer survive, the coral becomes substrate for other organisms such as hydroids. Collection of select deep-sea biota helps scientists understand and classify unexplored fauna. The remotely operated vehicle works carefully to cause little disturbance to the benthic habitat. A skate is observed with a unique tail with 2 black fins and white stripes. Skates share a family with stingrays and sharks due to their cartilaginous skeletons. An anemone anchors itself to a unique Plumarella octocoral containing a yellow skeleton and pink polyps. A squat lobster rests on dead coral fragments behind a colony of glass sponges. Squat lobsters resemble American lobsters, but they are generally smaller and their tail is tucked under the rest of their body. A pair of red Anthomastus octocorals share dead coral framework with bamboo coral and a glass sponge. Red photons stop penetrating the ocean at about 20 feet, so red coral appears black to predators. Sometimes referred to as a lollipop sponge, this glass sponge can be seen affixed to octocorals. Bright yellow zoanthids grow on its surface. Brittle stars do not cause damage to the corals, but use them to get higher into the current. This coral houses a purple anemone, a shrimp, and a mollusk which may feed on the polyps. A golden crab is walking on a relatively flat seabed covered in coral rubble. Golden crabs commonly feed on clams, mussels, brittle stars, and even the small sponges observed around it. Black corals are often found in deep waters. Their name comes from the color of their chitin-filled skeleton, but the coral itself can be white, red, green, yellow, or brown. A rounded orange Geodia sponge is observed with 2 osculum on the top for filter feeding. A ray-finned fish explores the coral rubble in company with small glass sponges and demosponges. These fish generally venture in shallow waters at night and deeper waters during the day. A small rat tail explores the seafloor around a large group of Analopsamnia profunda stony coral. A cutthroat eel swims carefully around this urchin. The urchin has flat poisonous sacs at the end of each long, flexible spine. A large pancake-like species of demosponge lives on the dead coral rubble. Sponges are difficult to identify without having a sample of their tiny needle-like spicules. 2 hours into the dive, a steep slope is discovered near the mound's crest. The seabed is composed of hard coral rubble with unconsolidated sediment infill. pointing to evidence of bioturbation. A large colony of Leiopathes black coral is discovered on a sloped surface composed of unconsolidated sediment. The polyps take on a feathery orange look against the dark black coral skeleton. An unidentified glass sponge shares the company of a squat lobster at the base of its stalk and crinoids hanging all around it. Halfway through the dive, a ribbon-like black coral was observed. Heteropathes differs from other black corals because of an extra row of short branches extending out of the front. A sponge garden resides on the flank of this mound. The sponge's fan-like appearance provide an open structure to aid in capturing food. A Cuban dogfish checked out the ROV near the top of the mound. This small shark species is often seen roaming the continental margin seabed. Pencil urchins sometimes blend in with their background. Many urchins were seen in this area, often surrounded by hydroids or corals. The third mound is the tallest with a crest depth of 708 meters. Patches of living coral, Lophelia pertusa, are observed in this area. Nearing the top of the mound, brittle stars are seen coating dead madrepora in front of a pink octocoral. Sponges, hydroids, and corals occupy the space, proving that life will expand where it can. At the top of the mound, an octopus takes cover behind stylaster and cup corals. A pentagonal-shaped sea star is found among small sponges attached to dead coral framework. This species of sea star occurs throughout much of the Atlantic Ocean. As depth decreases at the mound crest, the seafloor appears rough compared to the flat seabed observed during the ascension. Large colonies of living and dead Lophelia pertusa are very abundant. This area of high biodiversity includes a white bamboo coral, octocoral, and a sea spider. A glass sponge appears behind the wispy coral with yellow zoanthids and a crinoid hanging onto it. The distance between branch points on this coral is relatively short, providing more structure as compared to its wispy octocoral neighbor that possesses more area between branching points. This vase-like sponge with unusual ornamentation is anchored to a bed of coral rubble. The branches of this orange stony coral have a zigzag shape. A small living Lophelia pertusa is seen behind it, an uncommon occurrence on this dive. A large disc-like demosponge is living in the dead coral framework. Closing out the dive, a skate is observed tucked between a couple sponges and an urchin. Skates are distinguished from stingrays by their thick, short tails and lobes on their pelvic fins. At the end of the dive on the mound's crest, large patches of standing reefs host a plethora of coral, sponges, and other organisms living on and within the dead coral framework. Biodiversity at the mound's crest is higher than on the flanks due to the higher food-rich currents.